And then he said, look, what is the difference between my mother, who is in Rusape there, and who is looking after village orphans? That statement kept holding us up to date, because right now we have mothers and sisters who are looking for after children at communities, whom we have now termed child community workers. I will talk about that as we move on. But our social work law came about in 2001. We became a regulated state, and the dilemma in that is that we were regulated and gazetted as councillors. I was not part of the state councillors, but we did not have funding. At that time, I think Zimbabwe was also crippling with issues of budgets and economic resources. So the parent ministry was not able to support this team that was on. So we kept on and on without much support. The regulation itself was there. So just describing the background to say, I think the first couple of years up to 2007 or 2008, there was nothing much that was happening really on the ground, because the committee did not have sufficient resources. Operationalize the Social Workers Act and offers the Council of Social Work its existence. I think the law managed to offer and to make sure that there is a council in existence. Recognition of social work practice in Zimbabwe, advantages for regulation, and strengthening of the education and training of social welfare workforce in Zimbabwe. We're already working on a program, even at this stage, where World Education through USAID are supporting us to send sociologists and psychologists to go out and get a postgraduate diploma in social work, which would enable them to come back and work as social workers. These people have already been working as district social service officers, but without the relevant qualification which is needed for that position. So we are happy about that. Practice and ethical behavior of social workers. We have since developed the social work ethics, which is a law already which guides social workers in terms of their professional practice. Strengthening and developing a database of all social workers on the register. We do have, up to now, I signed registration certificates of up to 600 and something, but really these figures have dwindled, because in terms of the numbers that are here practically in Zimbabwe, it is really much lower than the 600, because the majority have gone out to the diaspora. I think regulation increases accountability within the profession. We are beginning to do some inspections to various social work agencies. We are inspecting even social workers who are working in those agencies without accreditation or without being registered. So that's being really accountable. We still have a mammoth task to get everybody on our register. We are commissioning a study to ask one of our interns, social work interns, to do a study in terms of how many social workers exactly do we have in the country, so that we can make sure that we wipe them up all and they come on the register. Protection of the title of social worker from abuse. Certainly, the title and the term social worker has been abused to reflect mothers and sisters who are working in the villages as community child care workers, which term we have called them now, and that they are not social workers as such. And it legalizes the social work. It legalizes social work practice. We can begin to find that there are social workers intending to go and practice as private social workers. Regulating committees. There are 4 committees which I talked about, which help to regulate the profession. And that's the finance and program review. Practice, I will talk about each one of them as we move. And also to say what is being done under that kind of committee. The finance and program review really was setting up the new office of Council by 2008 with a small grant from the British Embassy. The first ever conference of social workers in 2011 with support from World Education, I'm not sure, UNICEF, sorry. This support was coming from UNICEF, and that conference was a landmark. More than 100 social workers attended, indicating the hunger and thirst within social workers of coming together to review their profession. The second conference was in October 2012. Again, a resounding success with more than 100 social workers turning up. And in that case, we asked social workers to support themselves to come to the conference, up to about 50%. And of course, we met the other part. We are aiming to make sure that social workers will support themselves 100% when they come to these conferences. A new substantive registrar in place by October. His induction was really working at this conference last year, which means now we have senior staff members who are taking charge of the process of running and implementing the social work law. Participating in the USAID OVC support bid with World Education. We are very glad to announce that World Education, with support from several NGOs working with OVCs, and primarily the Council of Social Workers mentioned in that USAID bid, they've won this bid, and we are happy to be part of the implementation for the next 5 years. We will be developing our strategic plan so that when the funds are released to World Education through USAID, we are able to make a meaningful impact in making sure that the regulation is well grounded and well spread throughout the country. Organizing a board review and orientation training. Yes, we brought the board just to give them an orientation in terms of what they should be their role under that committee. The Committee on Practice and Ethics has been doing some work, coordinating the statutory instrument that allows social workers outside government to practice as probation officers. This statutory instrument has been difficult in coming, mainly because of the organization within the Department of Social Services. Not that they are disorganized, but I think it's a new law, it's a new process, so it had to go through various phases. It should be coming, the statutory instrument, which allows every other qualified social worker registered by council to represent children in the courts, because the Department of Social Welfare was found inadequate in terms of the numbers of social workers who could represent children in court and deal with children cases. The amendment of the Social Workers Act has already been done. A lot of consultation in the provinces of social work was done, supported again by World Education through USAID. This implies that we can now register my mother and my sister working out in the villages there and looking after village orphans as community child care workers, a category that we have developed. The Code of Ethics as well, and a lot of training has been done, supported by UNICEF, in terms of orienting social workers to the Code of Ethics so that their practice is guided by the Code of Ethics. The minimum standards for child care workers, these are the Code of Ethics as well, but at a very lower level, to enable those people at grassroots level to be able to look after children, but within a confined framework of practice. The practice, ethics and regulation continues. Non-public social workers bill supported again by UNICEF. I think I talked about this. Social Workers Act compliance visits and inspections have already been started. I think we have done 3 provinces now. We are moving out to all other provinces and compiling evidence-based kind of documentation that will provide to DSS. Distribution of the social work ethics now to about 350 social workers as the training on the ethics is going on, and then the distribution is also made. engaging public and private sector institutions on employing registered social workers. We are making appeals. This week we are running the International Social Workers Day, and all these messages are being pushed through at every function that we have. Membership and registration committee is in existence. Registered social workers, now over 600 professionals on the register. Gazetting inclusion of registration of community level workers, non-social workers like sociologists and psychologists, and social auxiliary workers who are qualified at certificate level in social work, social care workers who are degreed people who are non-social workers but degreed and with an interest to work in social work. We are also including social work students to be registered, because as they go on attachment and internship, they need to be protected. We have built a website which you can follow, and we are upgrading that website so that our members can log in and register on the website, and we can also communicate with our members through the website. Members they cannot register electronically at the moment, but this is what I'm saying, that we are upgrading that process. Gazetting social work tariffs with government ministry. We negotiate tariffs with social workers, and that committee is responsible for doing that, and our tariffs have been gazetted so far. Education and Curriculum Committee, coordination of all schools of social work to discuss the minimum international standards, supported as well by UNICEF. The postgraduate diploma in social work for sociologists and psychologists funded by World Education is being coordinated by this committee, and it's running and in progress. I think we expect them to graduate early 2014. Internship supervisors training and orientation. This committee is responsible for that, because we think that social work training should involve attachment for students, and it is always imperative and important that the supervisors that will supervise them out there are oriented in terms of what are the requirements for social work education. Way forward for council, regulation of practice. We are still far much behind in terms of completion of the necessary registration and regulation practices, but we develop a system that allows NGOs seconding staff to DSS. That is important, because NGOs are major employers of social workers, and that instrument is about to come, and once it has come, NGOs will be able to send their social workers to work and upgrade the record of children in institutions. There's a record that 99% of children in the institutions are living there illegally, because there are not sufficient social workers to deal with that. And NGOs, social workers, will definitely find sufficient work to deal with it. Needs assessment for all schools of social work to focus on issues of curriculum development and upgrade. We invited a Zimbabwean trained social worker living in the United States to come to celebrate with us on the Social Workers Day. And one of the things that he was talking about is innovation and creativity. We think that we need to include the component of innovation and creativity so that we end up with social entrepreneurs, social workers who can deal with the poverty at the grassroots level and be able to bring, not to manage poverty, but to be able to not necessarily eliminate poverty, but to bring families and communities out of poverty. Setting up centers for continued social work education. It is our desire to have a board, an examination board for social workers. We congratulate World Education for putting us at the front in upgrading the sociologists and the psychologists, because that's our role, to upgrade those people that are aspiring to work in the area of social work, and we upgrade them so that they can become a category of registered social workers. And we want to do that by registering this center for continued social work education. Reducing the social worker client ratio to regional standards of one to at least one social worker to at least 1,000 children. We have a mammoth task in order to do that. It means that we need 6,000 social workers on the ground. And that is the task and the challenge that we are giving ourselves as Council of Social Workers. We also need to update the production of social work educators to equip the existing schools of social work. In Zimbabwe, we have a record of only 3 PhDs in social work. That's a record. And of the 3, 2 are already outside Zimbabwe, practicing in South Africa and neighboring Botswana. We have 1 who is here in Zimbabwe. And we think that at that rate, we will not be able to produce the quality that we so desire. And we need to start upgrading the schools of social work, the competence of the teachers there who have master's degrees, so that we want to link with universities in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in South Africa and the region, so that they can assist us in the upgrading of at least a number of PhDs who can continue to be professors of social work in Zimbabwe. And the professor who is taking us through the Social Workers Day has been talking about research and development, which I think is a major improvement in social work, that we need to make sure that there is sufficient research and development, and which leads to innovation and creativity. So without more qualified professors in social work, academics and research social workers, it means the quality of teaching will remain low and archaic. There is a conception that research at present is only valid for 18 months. This is what the professor has been saying. So it means by the time they qualify and become qualified social workers in 4 years, much of what they are learning is redundant. We want to keep on pushing for research and development. I think I will stop here, and thank you so much.
Well, that was a very thorough and comprehensive look at both what's happened over time and some of the progress, a lot of the progress that's been made, and also some of the challenges. So what we want to do is to spend 10 minutes or so to allow anybody to ask questions about this particular presentation. You can do so by either writing in the chat window, as we did last time, or if you have your microphone and it's working, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. And again, while people are thinking about questions, let's see, I think some maybe have come in. Let's start with one here about, yes, you talked about social workers who had graduated and then gone on to UK or US or South Africa. So the question was, are the social work qualifications of nationals from Zimbabwe recognized in the countries they migrate to? So let's start with that question.
We have been tracking on that. As I speak, I am registered with the Health and Profession Council in the United Kingdom. I registered many years ago, but I said I will not go there, but I just want to keep tracking of social workers that are in there. We do ask for statistics from the General Social Care Council, which is now the Health and Profession Council, and they give us the numbers of those that are registered in there. We monitor magazines in the United Kingdom. We monitor newspapers. We ask our colleagues to send us newspapers, and there is stunning information in terms of the quality of the Zimbabwean trained social worker. They are in demand. Organizations from the United Kingdom are coming to Zimbabwe most of the time, holding seminars in hotels and what have you, and taking social workers along with them. The qualification of a Zimbabwean social worker does not even need upgrading in the United Kingdom. Maybe because the United Kingdom has been prominent and prominent donor in Zimbabwe, not donor really, but the UK is a colonial master, and our qualifications, I think, are very much well matched with the United Kingdom. I've not heard of a Zimbabwean social worker who has gone by and found that they could not qualify. But of course, they take on post-qualifying courses when they are there. Social work training is never an end, so they continue to upgrade themselves.
But it is one of the, I think it's the quality of the education they get in Zimbabwe does make it easier for them to migrate to, let's say, South Africa or UK, and you are trying to get further information continuously. Another question, kind of one more specific, you talked about the USAID initiative, the one that was funded by them. Do they get postgraduate education outside of Zimbabwe, and are there any specific universities, or is that still open? And then why psychology or sociology, as opposed to, I guess, something more core to social work itself?
I'll start with the why psychology and sociology. Out of the 100 or less employed by public service, almost half of them are psychologists and sociologists. So they are already working as social workers. And there's been an outcry that there's been a very, very serious deficiency in terms of quality of reports in the courts. And this was because majority of the people that were heading social work departments in the districts were sociologists and psychologists after social workers migrated. So these are the ones that we've targeted. We are not targeting sociologists and psychologists that are outside the Department of Social Welfare. One of our criteria objectives is also to support the Department of Social Services with manpower. And that's why we picked on those that are already in and send them for post-qualified courses. We are not sending anybody outside Zimbabwe because we don't have the capacity. But if university outside Zimbabwe are willing to support us, we hope that this USAID initiative, which we are going to operationalize in September, will allow for some level of us sending the master's program teachers so that they can come back with PhDs. Otherwise, we are focusing on universities that are local and dealing with local universities.
Yeah, sort of a related question, and that is to upgrade the number of professors in Zimbabwe, the number of social work educators with experts in research and development. Have you developed partnerships with universities elsewhere? And I guess I would add, you mentioned this sort of diaspora that is out there in lots of different countries. Do you think there's any possibility or interest in attracting some of them to come back and maybe teach for a period, whether or not they wanted to come back permanently? So I'm just curious about those two things.
Like I said, I am personally communicating with the diaspora social workers. I've been able to influence 2 of them to come. One of them is our registrar right now. One of them is a consulting partner. He works a lot with Council of Social Workers. So that's 2 brain gain. The professor who is leading our social workers day-to-day is Zimbabwean trained, but based in the United States. And he has been giving lectures to 2 universities so far. All the 2 universities have accepted that he should come as a guest professor, visiting professor, and he has agreed to do that. So we are crippling slowly in the brain gain area, but we must know that it takes a lot of big changes for people who have moved to the United Kingdom to just come back to Zimbabwe. They have mortgages that they have opened up there. They've raised families in the United Kingdom. It's more than 10 years they've been there. Some have bought houses and they've mortgaged themselves out there. So it will take time for them to come back. But we wish them to come back. But what we're saying is we need to develop what we have already so that we move on. But diasporans and what have you, I think is a phenomenon which is worldwide. China is developed to the level what it is because of Chinese outside China. We wish them well as diasporans in the United Kingdom and the United States, and hope that one day they will be investing back home, investing in the area of education, investing in the area of economic development, in all other areas. So as diasporans, we really don't have much against what they are doing, but we need to encourage them to continue to come back home.
Very good. It's interesting that the kind of activity, and you're staying in touch with them, and also recognizing that they have landed in other countries and they're living there and they have families. That, you know, this is a place where the health sector shares the exact same phenomena. That, for example, if you look at Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ghana, they're all trying to upgrade the number of medical school and nursing school instructors, and they're in contact with the diaspora. But the same factors that you just described are true there also, that they have been, perhaps got postgraduate education in another country, have often got homes now, and so it's not so easy just to come back. But there are schemes where they're trying to get people to come back for a set, you know, a semester or a 4-month period to contribute in that way, and that's having some traction. Another question around supervision, again, very important in most countries. And there was a kind of thank you for the comprehensive presentation. This came from Florence Martin. Is it possible to share with others the guidelines and trainings you've developed or are developing with UNICEF for the supervisors? The development of social work supervisory systems is a real interest in many countries. In fact, we saw in Tata's presentation that one of the future things they're trying to do is to improve their supervisory system. So this is one I can agree from our central position. We see the need for this and a high level of interest. So is it possible to share the guidelines and maybe the trainings or some parts of the trainings?
Sure. I think this is the whole idea of networking. We will go back to council and see what kind of programs they have set for training supervisors. I know that there have been trainings that have taken place already. They are still also in the process of developing a proper schedule of training and kind of curriculum, a handbook that the supervisors who sometimes are not qualified social workers should use, because of the shortage of social workers, we end up with the other disciplines supervising social workers. But we really are not making big noise about that. But we're saying let them come through and get oriented. Even social workers, they also should be oriented in terms of. So definitely, yes, we will take that note and make the copy available.
Good. I mean, we'll figure out the best way if you can identify the guidelines or get an electronic copy or maybe a training agenda or design. We'll figure out the best way to get that out. We could either post it on the listserv or do something like that. So that's very good. Any other questions about Zimbabwe? I think we're okay with that. You know, I did have one question. There is a focus on a certain ratio, and I can't remember. I think it was 1,000 social workers, 1 to 1,000, and so there was a focus on that. I'm curious about how you all see the relationship between kind of professional social workers with degrees, and then I think you also had social work auxiliaries, and you had a couple of other categories of workers that are in the field. I'm curious about what you see the linkage between the different levels of providers, I guess I would call them, for lack of a better term. You had one slide that had listed them, so I'm curious about, because in some ways that what they do may play into this whole ratio also.
Thank you. We think that social protection is not the monopoly of social workers only. Social workers play a major role of being the major protector by the law and by the Children's Act. So the two laws give social workers the mandate to look after children. We're talking about children only here, but really social work is not about children. It's more community and so forth. So our structure in the new law that we are proposing makes sure, and I think we say that it kind of gives the child protection, makes the child protection web complete by starting at the grassroots where the majority of the children are. Over a big and a huge percentage of our child protection services are offered by the extended family. We are still a traditional society. The extended family looks after a lot of those, and there is a lot of those that are not in formal children's homes. And we are saying those children that are out there in the community need kind of protection. And we have created a cadre who is called community child care worker. They are not educated to any level besides literacy, but you hardly find Zimbabweans who are uneducated. Majority of them have O levels, which is 4 years secondary education, and they are living in the village, and they've taken their role of looking after children, and they work voluntarily with organizations and other structures that are working at community level. They take the role of child protection. They raise the concerns of children at that level, pass them to the district social welfare officer, where there is a social worker who is now the case manager, who can handle and take over the entire case. But these are people who identify, who conscientize at community level. Then we say that there is another category. Of course, the student social worker comes in there, once in and there, and go back to college. But there is another level of somebody who has a 1-year certificate in social work, which is offered by the University of Zimbabwe, who we call social auxiliary worker. They are an assistant to the social worker or to the social care worker. The social care worker, who then is the sociologist and the psychologist, who are still working and interested in working in social work, and who might not have been upgraded like we've done the festival. So those people will take roles of management, administration at community level by the child care workers, at the children's home by the social work assistant and the social care worker. They are the ones who do the kind of donkey work of issuing warrants and public assistance and so forth. The social worker largely deals with protection issues. Protection issues, children in assessing the progress of children in homes and making plans for them for implementation by the social care worker, by the auxiliary social worker, and the community social worker. I think that's the kind of structure that we want to see. It's not yet operative, but we want it to operate in that scenario. The one social worker to 1,000 is our wish, that as social workers increase, as social protection increases. So once these people are registered, we know that there is some level of protection, and they will add up to the number of social protection officers, who are largely from the grassroots up to the social worker at the top. And we wish that to be one social worker to about 1,000 children.
So a very good answer to that, thorough answer. And when you started, there was a particular sentence that caught my attention when you said social protection is not the monopoly of social workers. And then you went on to describe the 3 or 4 other different kinds of roles that are being played that are very important all the way down to the community level and for homes and for children. So a range of people providing services. Good, excellent. We will move on then to the kind of more general discussion. And you know, for this discussion, there are a couple of things. One, you may have questions that pertain to both presentations, or something that was stimulated by one that might relate to both. Or if you have something about what you're doing around regulation and supporting the social service workforce, you know, what have been some of the successes and challenges, you can, again, either write that in the chat room or we'll call on you. Now, I think what I'll do while people are thinking about this is start. There was a question around our social workers, and this could be either to Tata or to Phillip. I mean, I think it was directed more during Phillip's, but probably applies to each. Are social workers currently being provided with specialist training in child sexual abuse? Does this include child sexual exploitation and trafficking? Thank you ever so much. So are they being provided with training in child sexual abuse? Does this include child sexual exploitation and trafficking? So I'll open it up, and either Tata or Phillip, if you want to take and answer that. See, Colin has to say, go ahead, Colin. You can go ahead and take the mic if you're there.
Thank you. The question was on specialist social workers. I think that's the reason why we want to set an examination board. That's the reason why we want to set post-qualifying training center, so that social workers, it's not only about children. We realize that there are many areas of social work. But like I said, from the start, the Danish also came up with training on social work education that was focused on child rights, which is basically child protection. So we have not yet done such kind of training. We are still kind of dealing with trainings that to do with organization of the regulation process and orientation of the regulation process. But as time moves, those are some of our strategic areas that we want to move in, and making sure that we have an array of specialist social workers. And what we think is, as the social work profession grows, we see social work organizations, an association of social work child protection officers, association of women social workers, association of social community workers, you know, all those areas of association of social workers with the aged. I mean, many areas of social work that are there, and that is why social work has no impact. It's because it focuses on a generalist kind of approach, and we want to specialize and make sure that social workers specialize, and when they specialize, their voices become stronger as an association of child protection officers, because they are speaking the same language. I do a lot of community work, and I would be happy to associate with colleagues that are doing community work. And in community work, we still find child protection. So I think that's the way we would like to.
Thank you. I think there's a question here now from Amy. You know, Amy, it might be better if you're there, if you have a microphone, if you just take that and you can ask that directly yourself. Is that possible?
Sure, I can. No problem. Basically, my question was just that both presentations have highlighted some common elements of regulation, both covering involvement of the government through legislation, such things like social work acts, through education standards, professional associations to register social workers, codes of ethics, exam standards, committees to oversee all these aspects. These are all areas that both of you covered. One other area that I'm interested in is promoting public understanding of social work and regulation. And I'm wondering if either of you can provide recommendations or suggestions of how to encourage public awareness, or whether creating public demand for regulation has been part of your approach.
Tata has raised his hand, so take the microphone.
Yes, yeah, I think this is our challenge here in Indonesia, to bring awareness of the people about the social works in terms of the professional ones. Yeah, because in so long that the community just aware about the voluntary one or the community social workers, and even in the past there is also the organization of the social workers that open for everyone who claim as the social workers. And then yeah, I think, and then because as I said, there is a lack of the showcase of the professional one working with the client, community, and etc. So what we are doing here is, now the first is, as in the child protection system, for example, that children who outside of the family is under the responsibility of the government. So we are working together with the local government in the district level, because in the decentralization law is going to the district level. And this is also the very challenging process since 2010, that government itself is not aware about the response for the child protection. So the strategy is bring the government to work together in the let's say the case management process, yeah, involved in the assessment, home visit, etc., with the lead of the social workers. And this practice actually bring the step by step the understanding about the government people about the social work practice, and it is also gradually spread out for the other organizations like the charter institution, NGOs, how the specific the social workers working on. So I think the point is we need to provide people, community about the focus of the social practice and bring them in our work in the professional. Yes, of course. There is also the limitation of the involvement of the people from the government, organization, and also from the people. And I see also from the people that we assisted, also aware that different way that social worker work with people. So this is another point. But it is still in one district in West Java. So, and we know we have the more than 500 districts. So it is still far to go. And other strategy that we developed, that we try to work together, like with the International Conference Social Development in IPSPI, and we conducted the conference last year in Yogyakarta, one province in Indonesia, and we would like to bring also the name of the social workers in the area of the social development. So this is the broader area. And before that, we also hosted the ASEAN conference about the social welfare and social work. This is maybe some strategy, and activity we are doing for the community awareness about the social workers.
Thank you, Tata. So it sounds like you're taking a number of steps on that. I think what we're going to do, as I see the time running on here towards 10:30, is Phillip has his hand up, and I want to let Phillip have a chance to address this question, and then we'll start to turn it back to Robin for some closing remarks. So Phillip, why don't you go ahead and take the microphone?
Yes, the issue of public awareness is very important. Our experience over the past 12 years regulated is that many people don't understand what social work is, and therefore the comment from the former Attorney General that how about my mother? Why do you leave out my mother who is doing village orphans in Rusape district in Zimbabwe? There is so much kind of ignorance in terms of what social workers do and who are they and where are they. In Zimbabwe, it's more about the visibility. They are not visible, which means we are a small, minute community. So what we have done so far, even government departments don't understand that we do exist. Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, who require medical social workers, they still don't understand that there is that need. But we have taken up a step in approaching them and meeting them, and we are making headway. Ministry of Health already has a policy that social workers should be employed in hospitals. Ministry of Education, we still have to gain entry. We are making that process. Unfortunately, further, Public Service Commission, who is the major government employer or the personnel management of government, do not even understand that there is a Social Workers Act. When the Department of Social Service requires social workers, and now because there is a freeze in all government posts, they invite lateral transfers from education, from other social science graduates employed in other departments in government to roll over to social work, because social work has become such a lucrative profession. Once you work in social work, you have an opportunity to go to the United Kingdom. So the Department of Social Work is filled with non-qualified social workers by that design, which is unfortunate, based on non-recognition by the Public Service Commission that social worker is a professional qualification that requires a social worker. So we are moving steps by steps in making sure that they are aware. In terms of other public service awareness, what we're doing this week, the whole week from Monday, and ending right now, I think we'll going out for the closing session of our World Social Workers Day. The first time that we are doing it in Zimbabwe. We have celebrated this occasion for the whole week. We have been on radio and television for the whole week, and journalists are coming to speak to us, and many newspapers are writing about social work. We think that it's a process that we're taking, and we'll continue to celebrate this day every other year, and we'll continue to engage stakeholders and government departments about what we do.
For this, and I want to kind of stress the end, the last sentence, continuously make efforts within government and probably beyond. I mean, I think the issue that Amy raised is an issue in most countries, probably even including the U.S., and there is a good deal of either ambiguity or non-understanding about the function itself. We were in a meeting recently with a fairly prominent public health person who was also a physician, and we were talking about the intersection of social work and the health professions, and because while they do separate things, there are also some intersections that are very important. And one of his comments was, well, that's true, but anybody can do social work. All you have to do is have a good heart. And it was almost pointed out that social work is a profession and a discipline on its own. It's amazing sometimes what people carry around about that. Anyway, so we're going to end on that note, the continuous need for not only doing things to make people better, more competent, have clearer roles, be certified, and so on, but also to create public awareness over the value of all that. So with that, I'm going to thank you very, very much, Tata and Phillip. Very good presentations, good responses to the questions. And I'm going to hand it over to Robin for some closing thoughts, and then on to Amy.
Thanks very much, Jim, and thank you to everyone for participating today. Tata and Phillip, your presentations were wonderful, very full, and really gave us a lot to think about. I just wanted to point out a couple of common themes that I think ran through these. Certainly both of your presentations showed us that your countries have a great need for social workers for different reasons, and that your professions have developed there in different ways and at a different pace, but still a great need for social work. I think that the issue around registering social work is the same in both countries. The idea of protecting the title of social work is one that's common whenever we look at professionalizing social work and whenever we talk about it. And title protection is something I think that resonates with all of us in every country. But I think what's also interesting, and you both talked about this, and your countries are both dealing with this in different ways, is how do you really incorporate those people who are not trained in social work but are doing the social work jobs or are doing those kinds of tasks, whether it's the community child care workers you talked about, Phillip, in Zimbabwe, or the social welfare workers that you talked about in Indonesia, Tata. And I think we are going to have to continue to grapple with those issues in social work as a global profession, because there are a number of people who do the kinds of jobs social workers do. And I think, Phillip, you raised an interesting point when you said these are people who have the passion for social work, and you don't want to leave them behind. You don't want to leave them out. If they have that passion, we may want to continue to embrace them and continue to have them be part of this profession and include them in the ranks. So thank you all for joining us. I thank the participants for adding comments and questions that led to a very full discussion. And I will just now turn the webinar over now to Amy for our final comments and discussion.
Amy, are you there? Is your microphone on?
Thanks, Jim. Yes, I was just saying, thank you very much to Robin and to Tata and to Phillip and Jim and to all of you who have joined us today. This has been a really fascinating discussion. I just wanted to highlight a few reminders before we close the session. If anyone has any events or opportunities that you would like to announce, please do so by typing information into the chat room. Also, if you're not yet a member of our listserv and you'd like to join, please send an email to the email address that you see here on the screen, the swws.webinars@capacityplus.org. Also, this webinar and the past 8 webinars will be, the recordings and the PowerPoint presentations will be available on ovcsupport.net. Probably within the next week, and we will send out an email to the listserv once those are posted. We also, this time, wanted to encourage you all to give us some feedback on the webinar and your experience joining us today. It will just take a few minutes to answer a couple questions, and the link is provided here on the screen, and we'll also just paste it into the chat window so that you can just click right on it from the chat window and go right to the SurveyMonkey. It should just take a couple minutes, and it'll provide us a lot of helpful feedback on your experience today. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Thanks.